before you go home next week, I'm gonna tighten everything so all the screws are tight when you are traveling with the chair. The only things that might move, it's not likely, but they might, are these black brackets.
Okay.
And there's a lot of them. And so what I did is I marked the circle as well as the ends there. Okay, so you've got kind of the location.
Okay.
And so get a shot of the side as well. You've got the location as well as the line to match up with the seam, so you know how to rotate it. Okay.
Okay.
That way, if anything, if she says, "Mom, it feels a little weird," make sure everything's at the marks.
Okay.
If it still feels weird, that's when you just call me. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So I've marked everything, so you know kind of what order to go in. Eventually, it'll just become routine and memory. But
Right.
first thing you want to do before she gets in is unwind everything. So when we're getting her out, we tend to just loosen things enough for her to squeeze out. But you want to unwind everything, and that's important because you don't want her getting in the chair with one of these pushers pushing on her, because then she's going to lean to get away from it. And so it's going to influence her posture before we want it to. So everything out, and then she can go ahead and have a seat. And so first thing we want to do is make sure she's in the chair in the same position every single time. That way we know the chair is doing the same thing every single time. Okay? So we've got kind of these pads to her left and right to kind of guide her. I still need something to hold her back. So that's where belt number 1 comes in.
Okay.
This is just a seat belt. The way this buckle works is it's a directional buckle. So I can't loosen it, but I can tighten it.
Okay.
If I want to loosen, I just push down and pull up. Okay. There's some pads on this belt. Those pads are meant to protect her hips. So in the front of everyone's hip, there's kind of a point or a horn. That's called the ASIS. I use that because it's easy to find. So you want to grab the ASIS with those pads. Okay. So first thing I'll do, make sure her arms are on the armrest. Make sure she arches her back and scoots all the way back till she's firmly against the back of the chair. You can use your hands to find the ASIS on both sides to make sure her hips aren't spinning one way or the other. Okay. You want them to feel relatively square. When she's in a good position, you want to lock her in that position with the hip belt. This is a seat belt, so you do want it low on her lap. You don't want to pull on her stomach, you want to pull on the pelvis. So make sure it's low on the lap, grabbing those bones that we talked about. And so belt 1, oddly enough, goes into buckle 1 on the other side. And this is the technique that I use that I would suggest you use as well. I started by loosening this so I have some length on both sides. And I just come in and I just take the slack out without necessarily pulling on it. I'm just taking out the majority of the slack, okay? Then I come to the other side and I'll have her pull her left hip back into this pad. And I want to tighten this side first, okay? Notice I'm pulling from here, not from here yet. I want to see how much slack there is, and then just use the buckle to pull that slack out. It'll feel tight here, but then you'll still have some pull here. So this side is more important than this side because this side pulls her into the derotator. Okay. Then I'll come back and I'll just make sure that all this slop there, I'll go ahead and take that out after. Now I know this is info overload, but I will point your attention to one additional thing. This pad, I don't know if your camera can catch it, but I'm grabbing her hip here, but not letting the pad slide around to her side. Because if this pad gets stuck in there, it's a very tight space between her hip and this pad, and it will give her discomfort. So
this just needs to be...
Just protect the ASIS or that point in the front.
Got it.
Okay, so that's belt number 1. Last point on that, you'll notice that there's no marks. It is a refurb chair, so there's some remnants of old lines, but there are no marks on belt 1, and that's intentional. I want you to tighten it as much as you can. to make sure that she's back all the way in the chair.
Okay.
So as her body composition changes, loses weight, gains weight, hips fill out.
That will change.
Exactly. So I don't want you going by a mark. I want you to understand what its purpose is and make sure it's fulfilling that purpose.
Okay.
Only one more hard part. Belt 2A and belt 2B. There is a reason that it's not 2 and 3, because you're going to kind of do them interchangeably back and forth. Okay. So belt 2A is the same type of buckle. I can loosen it. It's going to go over this pole or this bar and then over her hip on the left side.
Okay.
And then it plugs in the front, in between her legs.
Like a baby seat.
This mark does count. And we just latch that down. You'll notice there's not a whole lot there. It's because we tighten from the back. Okay. The purpose of this belt is to hold her left hip down. But you'll notice I can't really grab her left hip yet.
Okay.
So that's why we're going to do belt 2B next.
Okay.
Have you ever used a tie down like this before? I'll give you a quick tutorial. I'll use an analogy. Have you ever driven stick shift?
Yep.
Okay. So that's the best analogy I can think of. You've got 2 gears, okay? You've got drive. I can tighten it, but I can't reverse. And you've got reverse. I can reverse, but I can't drive.
Okay.
The way you switch gears on this is you hold the clutch just like in a car, okay? So the clutch is this handle, you squeeze it, switch gears. When you're driving, if you hold the clutch and try to move, you won't go anywhere. Same thing, you don't have to hold the clutch to play with it. You just hold the clutch to switch gears.
Okay.
Reverse is all the way flat, drive is not flat, okay? So I'm gonna loosen the belt, goes around this pole, and then around her body. It doesn't go around anything else, okay? And it plugs into itself back here, buckle 2B. It goes between her back and this white pad, so if you don't have room, just have her lean forward, okay? Now this is probably the trickiest part, is knowing where this belt goes. So you can feel her bone with your fingers. I'll switch places with you. And that's called the ilium.
Right there. Okay.
And if you walk your fingers up, you should feel where that bone ends. And if you push down on it, you can feel like the top of the bone.
Okay.
So walk up till it sinks in, and you can kind of, almost like a platform, right? That's called the iliac crest. You want this belt to be just above the iliac crest.
The bottom of it.
Correct. So basically as low as you can go without actually grabbing the pelvis, okay? Because this belt is for her low back. So if we're too high, we're not pushing the correct curve. If we're too low, we hit the hips and we can't access the spine, okay? So you want to be as low as you can without blocking by hitting the hips. So I use my fingers to feel the bone, and I kind of push in, and if I push, it should feel soft, okay? If I'm here and it feels hard, that means I'm hitting bone. If your arms are long enough, you'll hold it there with one hand while you tighten with the other. If they're not long enough, just double check your work, okay?
Okay.
And I'm gonna tighten until I start to see that iliac crest. You notice how we kind of created a shelf there?
Yeah.
Now we have a spot for this belt.
Okay.
Now I can do that job of pulling that hip down. Okay?
Okay.
This is her least favorite, and she does have a low left hip naturally. So normally, I would say this needs to go super duper tight. For this one, just take the slack out, okay?
Okay.
So just give it a nice oomph. You can feel that. It's not like super taut, but you know, kind of like you said, a car seat earlier.
Yeah.
You can't pinch and make slack, right? So then I'll come and make sure this belt is to my mark. My mark is this tightest line.
Oh.
Okay. Until it hits the edge there. If the line disappears, there's no way I could have drawn it. Okay, so if the line disappears, you're one click too tight. Okay. I know this is slow, so once I get you in, I'm just gonna let you right out. Okay. I'm not gonna make you sit there for 20 minutes.
There's some happy eyes.
Okay. Number 3 is this guy. This is
Okay.
called our derotator. That's a good term to know because she'll often say, "Mom, my derotator hurts." This is everyone's least favorite.
Yes, I've heard that.
But the most important, the reason it sucks is because that's the tightest part of the spine. So it looks to me kind of like an arrowhead, I guess. This flat end goes straight up and down. Okay. And we just tighten. And we want it to be left of the spine, so you can use your thumb to feel for the spine.
So it should just go right along the side of it.
Correct. And so go ahead and feel that so you kind of get a gist of how close I'm talking. It's right up on it, right?
Yeah.
But not on top of it, just to the left. And then you tighten until my mark, which is 4 1/4 inches. And I measure that between the inside of this white bracket and the inside of this white bracket. Okay, so we're on the same page. We're currently at 3 inches there. Okay. We're gonna get to 4 1/4 for the purpose of this video since it's slow. I'm not gonna go quite there, but you will when you're doing it, okay? Getting close now. It gets a lot easier from this point. You're probably thinking, thank goodness. What do you notice about her upper back right now?
It's twisted over.
Correct, and this side's coming back at us. What side is her rib hump normally on?
This one.
On this side. So she's exacerbating it right now. So what you want to do is have her spin her body counterclockwise, and you'll notice that this pad wraps around.
Okay.
That's to capture that rib hump. Okay? So she's going to spin her body, and we're going to tighten this guy. And I do have a mark written down for you here. It's 4 3/4.
Okay.
Measured the same way, inside to inside, okay? So we would go to 4 3/4. Number 5 is to recline the chair, okay? I think you picked her up a few times, right? Probably when I went missing. The higher up you are, the more leverage, okay? There's a point where it's pretty much weightless. I can balance it with one finger, okay?
Right.
That's when you want to switch to an underhand grip. All you're trying to do is slow down the rate of fall, okay? So keep your body close to the chair, lean into it if you have to. That way you're not using your shoulders, right? Lean into it, chest up, and just slow down the fall. And then hips back, bend your knees, let her down, okay?
Okay.
If you drop her, she's fine. Just kidding, she won't drop you. Number 6, you can either catch it there or you can see it in the reflection. That's this belt. You just pull it up until it can't pull anymore.
Oh gosh, okay.
And then number 7 is this guy. She'll get her arm nice and high. And same thing, you just turn it. I've got a mark 5 1/4. Okay, so you would measure, same thing, inside to inside. You can help her get tall by using your hands. You see how much taller I can get her? So if you use your hands, kind of get this thing started and then tighten the rest of the way, that'll be a little bit easier for her. Okay, so you would measure inside to inside. That was number 7. Number 8 is this guy. Spin, spin, spin. It's to tolerance.
Okay.
So she gets to tell me when to stop on this one.
Okay.
Okay. Number 9, watch your arm. Goes under the armpit and plugs in. Now is when you would start the timer.
Okay.
When you're ready to walk away, that's when the time starts because everything's done. Okay?
And this belt is preset.
Yeah, you shouldn't need to play with it.
Okay.
If you have to, it's just another one of these ratchets.
Okay.
So she tells you you need to loosen it, you can loosen it, readjust it, retighten it. Its purpose is to kind of hold this shoulder down into this pad. So you just don't want it to have a ton of slack is all. Right?
Okay.
When you're letting her out, again, high up, bend your knees, hips back, chest high. You can get her to here and kind of explode with your hips. Kick your hips forward. You can get her to here. Once you're here, it's easy. You just push, okay? When letting her out, very first thing you want to do is loosen belt number 6. That's a good habit because if you try to loosen this belt is holding it in and you'll just break something eventually. So belt 6 first. If you do it first, you'll never forget. Then I do belt 3 because that's probably what bugs her the most.
Right.
And then I do 2B because that's probably secondary. When you loosen 2B, I leave one hand here and push, trying to replace the pressure of that belt so that when I unlatch it, she doesn't move and I can slowly let that pressure off.
Okay.
Because she's getting squished, organs are moving out of the way. It's kind of sucky to have everything shoot back into place. So I kind of let that off slow. After that, everything you wound, just unwind.
Okay.
No real science to it beyond that point.
Just enough for her to scooch out.
Yep, she'd probably be grateful if you're fast. So just enough so she has room. Don't be like me. Don't forget the front ones and walk away. Leave them to fend for themselves. The front latch you can do. There you go. And that was the world's fastest video on the world's easiest thing. 2 thumbs up from